I didn't realize how much I was measuring myself until the measuring finally stopped. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't a decision. It wasn't something I tried to fix. It just disappeared quietly, the way a background noise disappears after you've gotten used to it. One moment it's there, humming beneath everything you do, and the next moment the silence makes you aware of how loud it had been. For most of my life, comparison didn't look like jealousy. It didn't look competitive. It was softer than that, almost polite. I compared timelines the way people checked the weather. A glance, an update, a quiet recalibration of how I was supposed to feel. Everyone around me seemed to be reaching something, doing something, starting something, becoming something. And while I didn't know exactly where I was supposed to be, I knew it wasn't here. Or at least, it didn't feel like it was. There are certain ages where the world begins to hand out expectations. They arrive without anyone saying them out loud. They're woven into conversations, into stories, into the way people react to what you say. At certain ages, people ask different questions. Are you dating someone? Are you settling down? What are you doing now? Where are you heading next? Questions disguised as interest, but soaked in implication. It wasn't the questions themselves that shaped me. It was the timeline behind them. A kind of invisible checklist that suggested life was meant to unfold in a particular order at a particular speed. And if your life didn't follow that sequence, you were out of sync, behind, late. I don't know who I thought I was behind. I don't know who I was trying to catch up to. The comparison didn't have a target. It had a direction. Forward, faster, sooner. I didn't compare outcomes as much as I compared timing. Someone else's engagement didn't make me want marriage, but it made me think about the timing of things. Someone else's new job didn't make me want their career, but it made me wonder if I should have changed mine by now. By now became a silent refrain, a timestamp for expectations I never remembers agreeing to. I thought I would have figured things out by now. I thought I'd be more stable by now. I thought I'd have chosen a path by now. I thought I'd feel different by now. By now carried more judgment than any person ever did. But no one ever asked, who wrote the schedule we were trying to keep up with? No one ever questions the existence of the clock. We only question whether we're late. And when you believe you are late, you start to treat life as something you can miss. Opportunities become windows. Decisions become deadlines. Growth becomes urgent. What comparison didn't give me was motivation. Some people see others achieving things and feel driven. They move faster. They remember they have dreams. They try harder. But comparison didn't energize me. It drained me. It turned action into pressure and pressure into hesitation. When life becomes a race, not wanting to run feels like failure. So I waited instead. I waited for the feeling of readiness because readiness felt like the signal that I was finally on time. I waited for clarity, for confidence, for the sense that things had aligned. But readiness has its own timeline, and it rarely matches the ones we compare against. What made everything more confusing was how neat other people's progress looked from the outside. From a distance, their stories looked coherent. One step led naturally to the next. One milestone made sense after the last. Comparisons are always cleaner from afar. Details make timelines messy, and no one shares the details. No one shows the delays. No one talks about the detours. No one posts the waiting. No one documents the indecision. No one narrates internal growth. They show results, or at least the illusion of sequence. I didn't realize that most timelines don't exist until after the fact. People connect the dots backwards. They tell stories about how events made sense even if they didn't make sense while living them. I assumed life unfolded in a straight line. But straight lines are an editing choice, not a reality. Life doesn't move like that. It loops. It stalls. It accelerates. It stops suddenly and then starts again for reasons you can't predict. But I didn't know that yet. I only knew that my life didn't look like the ones I was comparing it to. I thought the comparison was helping me understand where I was, but it only taught me where I wasn't. It reinforced the idea of being behind. And behind, I learned, is a feeling that doesn't need evidence. It only needs imagination. T here is always someone younger who has done more. Someone older who has done less. Someone your age who has done something you haven't even considered. Comparison isn't logical. It doesn't obey fairness. It searches for reasons to justify its existence. It took a while to notice the toll it was taking. Not an explosive toll, a quiet one. Comparison didn't make me miserable. It made me hesitant. And hesitation over time is its own kind of unraveling. I wasn't stuck because I didn't know what to do. I was stuck because I thought I was supposed to have done it already. Comparison made me late for a race no one was watching. It's strange how long you can live inside a pressure you don't know you are carrying. It becomes the background noise of your decisions. You don't hear it until it stops. That stopping didn't happen in a dramatic moment. There was no breakthrough, no realization, no revelation. It was more like exhaustion, a quiet kind of tiredness that made keeping up feel unnecessary. The exhaustion wasn't dramatic. It didn't arrive with a breaking point. It arrived the way seasons shift, gradually, almost without permission. Until one day you realize the light has changed. I didn't stop comparing timelines because I learned something profound. I stopped because the comparison eventually lost its usefulness. It stopped helping me explain anything about my life. All it really did was remind me of where I wasn't. Without urgency, the idea of catching up didn't make sense anymore. There was nothing to catch up to. Everyone I had been measuring against was moving in their own direction, at their own pace, for reasons that had nothing to do with me. Some of the people I once believed were ahead began changing course. Paths that looked linear started curving. People who seemed certain became uncertain. People with plans abandoned them. People who appeared decisive paused. People who had been rushing slowed down. Lives that once looked synchronized with some invisible master schedule began drifting in different directions. It became harder to tell who was ahead and who was behind. The more I paid attention, the more I saw that no one actually knew the schedule they were trying to keep up with. We were all just moving, stopping, adjusting, and hoping it made sense. Comparison demands a clear finish line, but life doesn't offer one. Without a finish line, the race loses structure. Without structure, urgency weakens. And without urgency, timelines begin to dissolve. I didn't notice the moment comparison fell away. I only noticed what replaced it. The first thing that replaced it was permission, not to achieve, but to wait, to pause, without feeling like pausing was failure. To move slower than others without believing slow meant late. To choose differently without believing different meant wrong. I stopped waiting for the feeling of readiness. I stopped waiting for proof that I was on schedule. I stopped waiting for the kind of clarity that only ever arrives in hindsight. And in that space, life didn't speed up. It softened. Decisions became less performative. I no longer made choices to keep up. I made them to live better inside my own life. That shift was quiet, but it was substantial. It moved me from competition to participation. When comparison stopped dictating my pace, I stopped needing milestones to measure my worth. Milestones didn't disappear. They just lost their hierarchy. Marriage, children, careers, moves, purchases, achievements, none of them were clocks I needed to synchronize with anymore. They became individual stories instead of collective assignments. I started noticing a different kind of progress, the kind that doesn't announce itself publicly, the kind that doesn't get celebrated, the kind that doesn't convert easily into anecdotes, progress that doesn't look like progress while it's happening, progress like learning to stay instead of flee, learning to listen instead of respond, learning to rest instead of push, learning to leave instead of endure, learning to want differently, learning to begin without knowing if beginning is wise. None of these look impressive from the outside. They don't create timelines that can be compared. No one can ask, so when did you learn to stop pleasing everyone? Or how long did it take before you understood you didn't need permission? T here is no schedule for internal growth, no deadline, no age recommendations. If I had known that earlier, I might have been gentler with myself. It took a long time to realize that comparing timelines was really just another way of asking if I was allowed to be where I was. As long as I believed others were ahead, I believed I was falling behind. But the concept of ahead and behind collapses when you don't share a destination. No one is late to a life that only they are living. What finally replaced comparison wasn't confidence or certainty. It wasn't sudden clarity about who I was or where I was going. It was a quieter quality willingness. Willingness to be seen while still in progress. Willingness to begin while incomplete. Willingness to move without finishing the thought. Willingness to change direction without narrating why. Willingness doesn't require timeline approval. It only requires presence. The more I lived from willingness, the less I needed the illusion of being on time. And the less I needed to be on time, the more I realized there was no time to be on. People bloom late. People bloom early. People bloom twice. People bloom after losing everything. People bloom while nursing wounds. People bloom in the wrong city and then in the right one. People bloom in their 40s after failing in their 20s. People bloom in their 70s after never blooming at all. Blooming isn't scheduled. It isn't linear. It isn't earned. It isn't deserved. It just happens when conditions, internal or external, allow. When the race ended, I didn't become fearless or enlightened. I didn't become decisive or successful. I just became present enough to notice what was actually unfolding in my own life instead of someone else's. Presence is quieter than momentum, but it lasts longer. When I finally stopped comparing timelines, nothing external changed. My circumstances didn't rush forward to justify the timing. There was no sudden acceleration. There was no reward for arriving at this new awareness. The world didn't congratulate me for dropping the race. It just kept moving. And so did I, only now. I wasn't rushing. I wasn't chasing. I wasn't checking the clock to see how far behind I was. I wasn't behind. Not because I reached somewhere meaningful. Not because I proved something. Not because I finally caught up. I wasn't behind because there was nowhere to catch up to. Because the timing of my life turned out not to be late. It was merely mine, and that was enough.